At the time of recording, it's like the 4th of November, and there's folks setting off fireworks. That's lovely. Hello and welcome. I'm Liam, the music reviewer, and today we'll be talking about the latest release from Vince Staples called FM or FM. I don't know, whichever one sounds easier in the moment. But yeah, Vince Staples, a Compton rapper, who started off, I think it was with Earl Sweatshirt's self-titled mixtape back in like 2010, and since then has proved himself as one of the 2010's just most interesting rappers. Has been very forward thinking. It's pretty universally agreed that 2015 Summertime '06 is one of the better hip hop releases of that year, which with a year that included To Be a Butterfly, is quite a bit of praise. The ominous demeanour and just attitude bring about some dark, dreary bangers that just kind of very rarely outstay their welcome. Then there's Big Fish Theory, an equally if not even darker follow-up, which I thought was just as entertaining as it was nihilistic, and I know a lot of people were sort of lukewarm towards it, and obviously each to their own there, but it was by and large one of my favourite records of last year. It was my album of the year for 2017. Just stabbed its eclectic claws into my body, took me on a half-an-hour joyride which saw experimental hip-hop mixed with electronic music, dance. It was just an amazing wee record. So when the surprise news was announced just last Thursday that we were going to get some new Vince Staples material and it wasn't going to be a direct follow-up to Big Fish Theory, I was excited but also very anxious, because I knew that it wasn't going to be as, like I say, kind of like pushing the envelope like his other material has, but I couldn't just like sterilise any and all excitement that I had for it, because pretty much everything Vince Staples has dropped up to this point I've at least thought was good. So yeah, there was at least a fair bit of hype like fueling me as I went in to listen to this album when it dropped. Downloaded FM on my phone, spun it a few times, not really sure how you're meant to do that with a phone, but it's been a few days now, and what did I make of it? Well, like I say, I was expecting it to be a bit more conventional, I guess would be the word I use here, and yeah, it's definitely a lot more sort of straightforward than anything he's dropped over the past few years, which might bum out some people, but for me, I don't want to say that sort of like writes off any and all sort of enjoyment that you can possibly get from this. Kenny Beats has some real highlights on this production wise, especially if the opener Feels Like Summer, which just manages to destroy that curse that every track of that title seems to have. I love how the beat sort of sounds like it's like some sort of like radio frequency trying to tune in but just can't get it quite right. It's really melodic, it's tasty, and it also ties into the overarching concept of the EP, which is basically just that this is all set on the one radio station. You have like different hosts going about, it's going back and forth, and you get some expected bits that come along with that, which are there. Tyga has a bit, and while it's not like excruciating by any means, it's also meant to like paint this picture of it having like some bigger stars and whatnot, but it's not exactly entertaining either. Earl Sweatshirt has a bit as well, and it definitely whets my appetite, but it just doesn't go on long enough. I would have much rather had a full-on feature from him, or just like at least like a minute long song on there, because otherwise it just feels like he's blue balling us. And then there's this skit where somebody phones in, like a guest or whatever, like a contestant phones in, and they're like, oh, name 7 famous people in 7 seconds whose name starts with V. And the thing that annoys me the most about this is, why did no one name Vector the Crocodile from Sonic the Heroes, or Vinny from Family Guy? Who could forget these famous like cultural phenomenons right there? Besides that, concept is sort of shallow, but has some sort of like quality to it. I don't hate the fact that it's there, it doesn't irritate me, but on the same point, I think if it was a longer runtime going here, if this was like an album concept, it would be a bit more entertaining, it could be a bit more fleshed out. So yeah, as it stands, the only thing that I like it for is more the fact that it helps the flow of the album. It's a lot smoother. Speaking of which, we should talk about the man himself, Vince. And while this production is different, and you'd think maybe the whole attitude would be different as well, Vince is still his nihilistic, cynical self. This is most evident on the closer track, Tweaking, which shares a lot in common with the song Party People from Big Fish Theory, where Vince is just clearly struggling with the loss of people close to him and that, trying to deal with it. And then Kalani comes on at the hook, which is actually an actually surprisingly fine guest appearance from her. Her hook's all about like just how people are just like taking drugs to cope with it, which is, like I say, sort of similar to Party People, where people were just trying to like avoid and ignore like the impending doom by just like getting lost in the refuge of the club and that, which I found kind of interesting. Sadly, the kind of production here is a bit reductive by Vince's standards, especially. I don't think that ruins it by any means though, and it does give the kind of lyrical focus here, does give it some sort of emotiveness so that it doesn't kind of go out on a fizzle. Fun, which I presume is the lead single for this release, has a rhythm that I could maybe expect to be part and parcel of like a kind of like more vibey chart hit or something like that, but Vince ensures that it never like loses track and never gets warped or anything like that, bringing it back down to that atmosphere, that kind of like really gloomy atmosphere of the neighbourhood, which has like a few standout lines like "my black is beautiful but I'll still shoot at you," and just the song's message and chorus of "we don't want to fuck up nothing," just cements it as an FM highlight. Delivery wise, I think Vince, despite some of the more melancholic topics to be found on here, is having more fun than he probably ever has. I think this is more evident on songs like "Don't Get Chipped," where he kind of like mess about with his tone a little bit. He sounds a bit more immature, and then "Relay," where he's like drawing out his lines to a hypnotic effect. And a complaint I saw about Big Fish Theory was that Vince's hooks were either given out to other people or they just didn't like them that much. And while I can disagree with the latter part, yeah, the foreign bit he did kind of give most of my way to guess, and this is kind of the case with this one. Ty Dolla $ign, Kalani, J-Rock all get the hooks on those respective tracks, but whenever Vince does get his hands on the hook though, I think they're usually quite solid, especially one on Outside, where Vince just seems more comfortable, confident, and it just makes it feel a bit more anthemic overall. I've mentioned hooks a fair bit during this review, and while I do think there's some sufficient ones, some of the hooks and production on here can be a bit disappointing. If it weren't for the percussion on No Bleeding, I just would forget how that track goes entirely, and Run the Bands just feels really underdeveloped to the point where it just can't handle the weight of the song. And the features on here are, like I say, kind of serviceable, but some are just kind of like plain forgettable. And when I say some, I'm really talking about Buddy on Tweaking, who just sounds like a bad Kendrick Lamar impersonator, and J-Rock isn't really doing himself any favours either. His performance just sounds really flaccid. It's really only E40 and Ty Dolla $ign who I think can like make their mark at all. The rest I just don't think are that memorable at all. All in all, Vince still is kind of like himself, that charming self, with that extra dollop of cynicism and nihilism, which just ends up lifting this release a fair wee bit. Going into this again, I had like some sort of like deflated expectations because of like how it's not the proper follow-up, and I did get something out of this. I might be in the minority when I say that, because I know some people will probably be disappointed by the fact it isn't like that next evolution of more of that, but I think it was just kind of like a nice ode to West Coast rap, to where Vince came from. So I definitely think there was that sort of like tribute factor, and even with that not in mind, I do think that songs like Fun, Outside, Feels Like Summer are ones that I'll return to, that I'll have a bit of fun with, but and I can't deny the fact that like there's some sort of like kind of mid-production, that some of the features are just kind of lacking, and that maybe some of the hooks as well are just sort of disappointing. So I can't see myself giving this anything more than like a generous strong 6 out of 10. If you guys have listened to this, let me know what you think. Just down in the comments below, a rating, your favourite songs, your least favourite songs. I'm always eager to know what you guys think. And yeah, thank you for watching. Stay safe and stay hydrated.